Are you struggling in your faith? Are you pretending you're happy but stuck in a spiritual rut? Are you tired of listening to famous pastors and preachers who make it sound so easy? Welcome to Broken Catholic, the #1 Protestant and Catholic voice in America. I talk about the important things that nobody else is talking about, like how to align with God's plan for your life, because I believe this is where 90% of Christians get stuck. And I tackle the negative self-talk that we all secretly struggle with but won't admit. My guests are brave Protestants and Catholics who share their struggles, their fears, and their daily holy habits that help them win in their spiritual lives. I'm your host, your coach, your friend, Joseph Warren. I'm also a broken Catholic and former atheist, and a spiritual coach to Christian business owners and CEOs who are married with children. This show was created for you, the broken Catholic who's pushing to get your spouse, your kids, and yourself to heaven. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you're just one surrender prayer away. Today, my featured guest is Robert Kandell, and he is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, best-selling author, and has taught over 10,000 students in 400 workshops, coaching sessions, and lectures how to live an authentic, unhidden life. We're going to get into what he means by that. He's a veteran of many worlds and has spent time in corporate America, a startup, and built an international 8-figure business based on relationship, intimacy, and sexuality. He currently teaches and lectures within the U.S. and internationally, and runs a successful consulting firm helping small businesses to become marketable and profitable, and also remarkable in their industries. He is the host of the highly successful podcast, Tough Love. That's spelled T-U-F-F, Tough Love. And he's author of the recent Amazon #1 bestseller, Unhidden, a book for men and those confused by them. How true that statement is. Robert, you can find at robertkandell.com. That's spelled Kandell.com. Robert, welcome to Broken Catholic. Go ahead and fill in some of the gaps in that intro, would you?
Thank you, Joseph. It's a pleasure to be here. Wow, so many gaps. An incredible life. Didn't end up anyway the way I expected. You know, when I was at my guidance school, you know, the high school guidance counselor.
The guidance counselor. What do you want to do with your life?
What do you want to do when you grow up? And I thought I was going to be an engineer. I thought I was going to be, I don't know, in a cubicle and with a career like everything I saw in the movies. And my life has been nothing like it. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for the path that I took. I'm grateful for everything that was given to me. And it's just, I'm almost 50 and excited for the next 50 years of my life. And it's just, and I've lived a blessed life.
That's fantastic. When's your birthday coming up?
March. 2 months now. Yeah.
Nice. Mine's in February.
Okay.
Happy birthday early.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into a little personal stuff here. So share something personal about you that very few people in your business life actually know.
Well, the disadvantage of running a podcast is you reveal pretty much everything if you do the podcast right, especially when you write a book called Unhidden and you write, so my mom is a very frequent listener of my podcast, and she's like, well, when you talked about this thing, I got a little uncomfortable. I'm like, well, I know you're not. Anyway, the point is like, my desire is to live unhidden. Probably something that a lot of people don't know is I'm an introvert and I'm shy. Like I'm the kind of guy that goes to a party and wants to go to the edges of the room, be the wallflower, watch, and hope someone comes talk. That's like a high school thing that's still inside of me. So that's probably one thing that most people don't know, because I am very gregarious, talkative, and loud at times.
Listen, I think you just, really connected with 90% of my audience when you said that, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember going out to the nightclubs and everything with my buddies, and they would all just line the walls with their beers,
right,
and just hope someone was going to come and speak with them. And then I'd be the guy. I'd be the opposite, right? I'd be the guy out there.
You're the leader, the Pied
Piper. But BC Nation, Broken Catholic Nation, a little hidden secret here, or dirty secret about podcasters. I would say 90% of them are shy, more interior individuals. They're not outgoing, and this gives them the outlet to be outgoing, gregarious, share their personality, who they are and stuff, but kind of behind the scenes. They don't have to be out front and center in the spotlight. Would you say that's a true statement?
You know, I've gone to 2 podcast conferences, and I definitely felt at home. You know, in watching, because one podcast movement had, when I went to in Orange County a couple of years ago, and they had the mixer on the third night or whatever it was, and I just watched people. Some people were walking up, most people were just praying, like me. Someone would come talk to them. So yeah, I'm very uncomfortable in those positions.
So BC Nation, if you ever had the dream of starting a podcast, but you have that thing rolling around in your head saying, "Oh, I'm too shy, I could never do that," just know this is the perfect medium for your personality.
Right.
Okay, Robert, let's get into your faith journey, and let's talk about all things, spiritual and God. And what type of faith background, we were talking a little off camera here, but what type of faith background were you raised in? And then what happened with that? Like, did you stay in it? Did you do what a lot of us do, what I did, which is kind of rebel from it, in the 20s, and then go explore life, so to speak, and then find yourself back. So kind of walk us through that journey and paint us a very vivid picture of that story, okay?
I grew up on the North Shore of Long Island. I was born Jewish. Oh, didn't know that. Okay. And I grew up in a town called Roslyn. Very strong expectation of people of my like to go to Hebrew school, to get a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, and go through this process. And it was like Hebrew school was like 2 hours after normal school, and then Sunday mornings from 9 to 11. And so all the kids we all hated it. We liked being around each other. We were a little young to flirt, but we were flirting. But at the same time, it was just extra school. It was 6 hours of school per week. And so none of us wanted to be there. But I fell in love with history, the study of the Bible, study of the Old Testament, and just the details of it. I loved just how it was written, and I would read books outside Hebrew school, and I would find other books. And so really studying the Bible. One teacher actually said I had, could have been a scholar. I had just so much interest and devotion to it. But as I got older, I got a little less interested. And then at 13, I had my bar mitzvah. And I remember this specifically. I said to my parents, after my bar mitzvah in New York, I'd like to go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem and have a second ceremony at the Wailing Wall, which is a very significant thing for Jews, to go to the Wailing Wall to complete that process. And my father said, we can't do that. We have to take the money it would take to that to have a party for the family and the clients. Because my dad was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman. It was part of his expectation was him to provide a party for, these people that I didn't really care about. And that in that moment, that flash of that moment, I thought, this is ridiculous. This is screwed. I didn't like this. Like, religion wasn't working for me. And my shift just altered in that one single moment of being told, I can't go to the holiest place on earth. I have to go to a party at a Swan Club in Long Island and schmooze with my parents' friends and family and clients.
Thank you for sharing that story. And BC Nation, can you relate to Robert right now? Was there a moment in your past, in your childhood, perhaps, where you just shifted? You made an unconscious decision that really redirected the course of your life or your faith, your spiritual journey? I know I did. Mine was the divorce. My parents got divorced. Parents whispering in my ear, your other parent never loved you. It was all a lie. They've been pretending your whole life. I felt betrayed from both sides. I made an unconscious decision never to love again, never to let anyone into my heart, because I never wanted to feel that betrayal again. And right there, that affected all my dating relationships. And Robert, you're an intimacy and sexuality expert, so you really get that. I know you get that. And in BC Nation, maybe there was something that happened, a human brokenness that occurred to you. And so many times we project that onto our Heavenly Father. And we say, well, God, if like my human dad did this or caused me this hurt or wasn't there for me or left me or abandoned me, well, then I can't trust you.
Mm.
Robert, what shows up for you in that?
I didn't have that argument with God. I was a smart intellectual kid. I had my argument with religion, especially, North Shore, Long Island Judaism, which was very showy. We had one of my peers had a bat mitzvah that must have cost 30, 40, $50,000 easily back in the 80s at the
Now they're
Copacabana.
over. Yeah, now they're over 100K.
Right.
Yep.
So that was like the expectation. So it was never God. I always knew there was a power greater than myself. It just didn't make any sense that human beings were running the show. Like, it still doesn't make any sense. You look at, like, we are not able to create such an amazing universe, an amazing world.
That's right.
My human physiology, it is just amazing what I can do with my hands, what I can do with my heart, what I can see, what I can hear, how I can think. So it was never an argument with God. I always knew, he was out there. It was just with religion that seemed trivial and very human.
I really get that. And I still wrestle with God on that. Like, God, why would you come to earth, right? Start a church and then leave us in charge of it? Look how broken we are. We can't even get the relationships in our life right, let alone, run your church right. So I really, really get what you're saying here. So take us through the journey, keep us going there. And so what happened next, right? You made this shift, you made this pivot in your life. You're like, I'm done with religion, all organized religion. I don't like it. I don't stand for it. It's showy, at least the one you were raised in. And I'm a Long Island boy myself, so I really get the Long Island Jewish culture.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? What did you do from there?
I just started to figure things out for myself. And when, as a Jew, you do your bar mitzvah, it's like you've done the deal. You've completed some agreement with your parents and grandparents. It's like, okay, I've cleaned my room.
Now get off my back.
Yeah, exactly. I've done my side of my deal. And so, and my parents, my mom, I don't want to speak for my mom, but my impression of my mom was she was shifting. Her spirituality was shifting. She was a runner and a walker, and she loved being out in nature. Her relationship with what I'll say God was being outside and being with him. My father was more into the tradition of Judaism, the ideas and the concepts of it. And so I watched them. They didn't go to temple after my bar mitzvah. They weren't going every Saturday. So I was like, great, I'm done. So, but what happened was I just started to find my own version of it. And I do talk to God in my head. I do ask for help. I do work things out, from math problems to relationship problems with some greater power in my head. And so for the next, last 35 years since my bar mitzvah, just creating my own version of with God and with spirit, and meditating and praying and talking and just allowing, believing that I'm being led, that I'm believing that I'm being held, believing that there's a greater purpose, that I don't know anything. I don't need to know everything. I just have to do one step at a time and believe that I'll be held in this great purpose of my life.
I hear that. I hear that a lot. Let me ask you this, right? Because I get a lot of different spiritual journeys that come on the show. And way back in the day on one episode, we even had someone that declared she was a witch. And she, and that was a very interesting episode. Yeah. But, halfway through, she was crying. She was crying and releasing to, abandonment issues from her childhood and, to God and everything. And it was beautiful. But is there anything missing? And here's my real question. Do you miss the fellowship, the human side of your spiritual journey and walk? And I really get it, and I hear you, that sometimes we get so disappointed at humans because humans disappoint, including us, that we just want to go just to God and stay with God and kind of box out the rest of the population, so to speak, from our spiritual
Mhm.
life. Do you miss anything there? Is there anything missing?
I can't. That's an interesting question. 49 years old, live in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles now. Second marriage, raising 2 kids, full-time job at this office nearby, and so we really do live in some form of isolation
Mm,
in the second largest city in the country. It's still hard to make time for friends. It makes time. It's hard for people to go from. I don't know if you know a lot about Los Angeles, but we are. We don't like to leave our little nook of the because of traffic is so bad, and so it's hard to find time for fellowship and time for community. And so, I think if anything, religion provided what building an organization, a community I did in my 30s and 40s did. I was a member of a 12-step program called Al-Anon.
mm,
Did that for 4 years, and that had a very strong fellowship and relationship to God in that. So I've had experiences in my life, and here I am at 49, missing the community. And I think the best thing religion does and did for me is bring like-minded people together to check each other, to see each other, to validate each other, to argue with each other, to be with each other in our life purpose and our pursuit of perfection, our own perfection, our mastery, our relationship with God. And so I think that's the piece I miss is some excuse, quote, air quotes, an excuse to come together to be with others. That's difficult in my middle years.
mm. Thank you for being so real and honest and transparent about that. And, I firmly believe faith is not a solo sport.
Mm,
Just like anything, just like entrepreneurship. We're both
mm,
business guys, you and I, and we know we can't do it alone.
mm,
There's times when we can have success by ourselves, but
mm,
eventually we run empty, we run dry, right?
mm.
We're not enough. And I think it's the same in the spiritual place. So, um, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that because that's something that comes up so much, just kind of doing the spiritual walk by yourself.
Mhm,
And it can be exhausting sometimes, can it?
mhm. Oh, for sure. I feel blessed to have my Morgan as my second wife. And if I could think of a better spiritual partner, I can't imagine someone who challenges me, someone who sees me, someone who understands me. My processing and my communication with her is so godlike. It is so transparent. It is so real. I've never been so true and authentic with another human being in my entire life. And just the ability to say every weird thing in my mind for me to be able to be interested and curious and every peccadillo and every nuance of this woman and just to discover and her evolution and her expansion and her going deep into her spirituality and her teaching me and me being like that is so weird but okay tell me more. Like that's the mastery, to have another person to explore God and purpose and mastery. I mean, that's
Now,
where I feel truly blessed.
is she similar faith perspective as you, or is
She
she?
was. She actually went deeper into the Jewish. She went almost to the point of Orthodox.
Got it.
For
And
about
where's she at now?
she's out. She's out. She saw the hypocrisy as well inside
Come
the.
on, Judaism, stop kicking people out, making them
Well,
run. I could say the
well,
same thing about the Christian church as
Yeah,
well.
I
So
know, I get that. It's she was Chabad. She went deep into her religion. She would walk to shul with a baby stroller in the San Fernando Valley,
hmm.
100-degree heat during the summer. She would cover herself, and then she just started to find herself in that. And she has no argument or angst towards
Hmm.
Judaism. I don't have any argument or angst toward Judaism. I'm grateful for it. She's grateful for it. And we've found our own, again, just relationship to spirit, our own relationship to God afterwards. And it's just so neat to watch each of us expand.
Robert, thank you for taking us down your spiritual journey path and some of the things you wrestled with and some of the things you've created for yourself. And I always ask this question, and I just ask that you be real. Is it working?
My life? Oh, absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I,
that's how I say it. Got it, right? And it's like, listen, we worship the same God.
mhm.
may have a different name for it based on our personal experiences, our environment, etc. But for all my Christian and non-Christian brothers and sisters out there listening to this show, God wants to meet us exactly where we are in our spiritual walk. And all he asks is that you look up. Just look up. Most of the problems in your life come from looking horizontal instead of vertical. Right? We cause harm to each other. We look at each other and we think that's it. That's the top. It's not. Look up. Look up. Get back into spiritual alignment. Talk to him. He's your father. That's what I believe, right? So, Robert, let's shift this. Let's talk all things guys, dudes, broken men, right? I'm a broken Catholic and former atheist myself. So you wrote this book on hidden. Why'd you write this? What did God call you to? Because, whether you call him spirit or God, like there's a calling in your heart here to take this on and to get real transparent with men who are the least transparent of the genders. That you got to get through the egos and everything like that to get to them to this vulnerable place of, hey, you're walking around with wounds. You got a bullet hole in you, dude. Like you can't just not address it. So why'd you write this book?
I wrote this book because I was having the same conversations over and over again with my friends online, my clients. I was also feeling really successful in my relationship with my wife, Morgan, and learned so much. My story is I consider myself normal till I was 28. And what I mean by normal is I was living this societally approved path of walking down the line, job, first marriage, and going to have kids and all these things. And it got etch-a-sketched. I hit a bump in the road and discovered that the life I was leading wasn't my own life. It was my father's path, my biological father's path, not my true path. And I just had some wild adventures. I started a business in 2004, which was an educational company for adults, teaching about relationships, communication, and sexuality. Built that from a paper napkin sketch to an international 8-figure business. Left that in 2014, totally burnt out, ready to figure out this next phase of my life. I was 44 at the time. And then I just started to write. And the book just sort of evolved. I wrote it in a year. It was very easy on some level to write because I've been preaching it and speaking it for, over 400 workshops. And it's really, the way I describe it, it's a pragmatic guide for men in this very difficult, changing 21st century of how to be with himself, how to be with his purpose, his relationship with God, and how to relate to these powerful, ever-changing modern women, because the rules of my father and grandfather are gone. And it's time for men to wake up. It's time to smell the coffee and learn some new ways of being, or life is going to get more and more challenging as the decades proceed.
What would you say is the most confronting lesson or confronting message in your book on Hidden?
That women are not lazy, less than, or less than men. Because I grew up in New York in the 1970s, and I identified that I was taught that I was better, at least 1 degree better than women. I was more important. I was the higher echelon. And then I started to relate with women who were honest and saw my chauvinism, my deep, deep chauvinism, my belief that I thought I was better than women and more important, and how that shows up in every single communication, every facial gesture, every idea was this chauvinistic meme. I wasn't a bad person because I was a chauvinist. I was just an ignorant person. And what we have now in the 21st century is that men are dumb and women are angry. And the dumber men act, the more angry women get, and the less truth they tell men, and the men act dumber and the women get more angry. And we're at a tipping point where the behaviors are no longer acceptable. You look at Me Too, which is 2.5 years old now, imperative social change of the behaviors of men are no longer acceptable, and men need to see, confront, understand, so they can start to act more like gentlemen.
So I'm going to ask you this the modern woman, the man she's looking for, describe him to us.
He knows how to dance. So here's what I mean specifically. Men are trained to be linear. We're trained to think. I'm using generalities, by the way, just so you know. There are many men who do not fit this pattern. I'm talking more towards the middle of the bell curve, if you imagine, like there's people
Sure.
on both sides. So just know, if you're a man listening to this and it doesn't fit you, I apologize. It really am speaking in generalities rather than the holistic. But men are taught to think linear. There's beauty to that. There's benefit to that. There's ideas. And so we get stuck in our linear thinking a lot. Women want men who can dance, who can be in that linear thinking 1 second and then go to a non-linear thinking 1 second later, and then go back to linear thinking, where they want a man to be strong, and then the second they want them just to listen or to show their emotions. They want dance partners who are willing to go break dancing and then swing dancing and then waltzing and then stand still. They want men who are willing to listen and see and hear what she's asking for, rather than for them to be in their ego of what he thinks she's asking for.
I really like the metaphor you created there. And I remember when I first met my beautiful bride, she wanted to go dancing, and we go out to this line dancing place, country and everything like that. And to me, growing up on Long Island, that is not dancing, my friend. And it's just very, everybody following each other in these moves and these techniques, and they all don't smile, because they're so focused on the move. And it really paints a very vivid picture for me of how men show up in their relationships most of the time. And they're just very linear, focused on the move, problem solving, fix it, etc., just as you're saying. And women in general, what I'm hearing you say, they want the guy that's afraid to bust a move. He's not afraid to bust a move and to break the norm and to not be so focused on doing everything linear and perfect, and it's a process and it's like a mechanical or manufactured, but really just being fluid in his own life and in the relationship, and going and being present, right? So if you're fully present, you're able to say, okay, where is she right now? And really just kind of move with her or ask her about her. So I really get what you just brought. Thank you for that. And I also agree with that. I think there's very few men that are well practiced in that. But every man is capable of it. I truly believe that, right? So we've been conditioned. Sure. Yeah, we've been conditioned a certain way, right? Like you were conditioned a certain way. Hey, you grew up in hey, you're better than, this class of people. So yeah, once you're able to let go of all that and just say, let me really just be curious and discover, who is she? What is she up to? What does she want? Like, and be that kid again, that little boy that was just curious in your own relationship, BC Nation, for all you dudes out there. And women, it's the same thing for you. Don't think you're getting off the hook and this show's all about you. No, it's the same thing. Like, really get to know your man. What makes him quirky and dorky and everything else, and give him the freedom to express himself without feeling like a doofus, right? Like, that's what. Go ahead, Robert. What do you want to say?
I mean, that really is the thesis of the book, is, giving each other permission to be unhidden. I mean, first and foremost, you have to start with yourself. I want to live authentically. I want to show what's inside to people I want to be intimate with. Now, this is an important nuance of the book. I lie all the time. I withhold all the time. I don't like live every single person, show them all my cards. I just choose who I want to be intimate with, who I want to be real with. And for those people, I don't lie. I don't withhold. I don't, take half steps. And that's really important, is to make the deliberate choice. I want to be real with this person, and then go all in. And what most men don't do, especially with their romantic partners, because we're chauvinists, we think, oh, she can't handle that. Or if I tell her that, it'll be X, Y, or Z. Or if I tell her that, she'll leave me and I'll end up alone. So it's from fear and judgment that we create a chasm, a separation from the people we say we want to be intimate with. And I think that's the cancer of relationship. That's the cancer in ourselves, and our ability to take 1 degree step forward and be a little more honest, a little more honest. Honesty begets more honesty. When you provide a space for your partner to be real, it provides a space for you to be more real. And then you can actually be in relationship with the person you're with, rather than the story or the facades that we tend to build of relationships.
Such a good answer there. And Robert, I'm gonna share with you one of my spiritual coaching clients. That's what I do full time now. And so I work with a lot of guys that are killing it in business, but when they get home, they're miserable.
Yeah.
What's the point, right? So I help them really get their personal lives in order, their relationships, their marriages, avoid expensive divorces, etc., get their kids back in relationship, right? Because they were the provider dad, not the present dad for, so many years, etc. But it comes to mind now, one of my coaching clients, he was like wrestling with something. And he's like, I can't tell her, Joseph. And I was like, dude, that's the very reason you have to. Like, you get that you're one flesh, right? Like, you're one flesh. So if you're hiding something from your spouse, guess what you're doing? You're lying to yourself and expecting your life to go well. Like, it just can't work. So, what he was wrestling with was when he went to speak at these conferences, for whatever reason, he didn't wrestle with porn at all. But when he went to these conferences, he would get all this temptation when he was in the hotel rooms the night before he was going to go up on stage to look at porn. And it would happen every time. And sometimes he would break and he would look at the porn and then he'd feel like crap the next morning when he went up on stage to inspire all these people, right? Faith-based stuff. And I was like, don't you see what's going on? Like, the enemy is taking out your knees before you go up and impact all these people. Like, that's the thing. You need to invite your wife into this, and so that she's there for you. You could do phone calls. She could get you through those evenings, etc. When you're away, you're out of town. And he's like, Joseph, she'll leave me. She'll leave me. Exactly what you said, Robert. And I was like, does she love you? Of course she loves me. Then she won't leave you. Right. And he had the courage and he did it. But first he texted me. He's like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. Right. And he backed out and we just coached a little more. Then he did it. And he said, Joseph, you have no idea. Like, we had an amazing relationship, one of the best marriages. We coach other couples. But when I got honest with her about it and we cried together and I said, hey, this has nothing to do with you. It's not making you less than. The enemy's just attacking me and I struggle with this. And I wanted to bring you in on it because I trust you that much. He said, it brought our relationship to new heights we've never realized. The intimacy just has expanded. God has done so much with it. And I was like, do you get you would have missed out on that? If you didn't take that step. So that's just an inspiration to all of you out there, you dudes listening right now. Let your women in. Let your women in. What do you want to say, Robert?
Yeah, and there's a couple things. The first is she probably knew on some level something. Like, women are a lot smarter than men, period.
That is intuitive.
Yes, smarter and intuitive. They know something. They might not know the thing, but they can definitely sense something. Men are trained not to pay attention to emotions, to avoid emotions, to be, with the moment, which again is a positive thing. But to me, what's required for men is to bridge both, to have the intellectual capacity, but also the emotional and instinctual capacity. To be the best poker player ever is to know how the cards fall, but also to have that little voice in your head saying, oh, he's bluffing, et cetera, et cetera. So just know that she probably knew something, and your willingness to say the truth is the most intimate act. And if that person leaves you because you're revealing who you are, on some level, yes, you committed a quote crime, but also that's her stuff. That's her stuff. That's her judgment. It's something else going on for her. And so it's not a one-sided thing. It's a co-created thing. And your ability to say, this is who I am, please love me for who I am, all the aspects of me, is the most, to me, God-inspired thing you can do, is to show who you are to another human being.
Absolutely love it. And also, BC Nation, that's what God's asking you to do. God already knows all your brokenness, all your hurts, all your wounds, all the stuff you mess up with. He just wants you to bring it to him and tell him, hey, God, this is what I'm struggling with, and just have those conversations. He already knows.
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote
Go ahead, Robert.
I wrote a chapter of my book. It was a story. I had a client. Actually, it was a high-end New York escort. Her name was Libby, not her real name, the one she used. And I had permission to speak about this in the book. And what she would tell me is that these men would come and pay her $800, $1,200, $1,500 an hour to do what they wanted to do in the bedroom. And then she said the most interesting thing. She said that the men would rather be doing these things with their wives than with her. And I would look at her, and she was this gorgeous, young, powerful woman. But the men actually wanted to do these acts, these things that their desires, their fetishes, but because they couldn't even speak to their wives, they were spending $100,000 a year with Libby because they didn't feel permission. And so I know it's an extreme case, but it's a really good example of the cost of withholding and the cost of you not making space for your partner to reveal this. How can you just say, hey, you might have felt my judgment in the past about X, Y, and Z, and I can see the impact of that is that you might be scared. You might be worried I would leave. Like, there's a two-way street here. Your friend, your client had the courage to speak the truth to his wife, but what could the wife do just to make it safer and safer for him to reveal? How can you improve your marriages and your relationships by just saying to your partner, I want to know all of you. I know you might be scared, but I want to know every little thing about you. That's where intimacy will skyrocket.
So BC Nation, we're speaking with expert Robert Kandell. You can find him at robertkandell.com. And he's showing up here today, and we're speaking about his book on Hidden. We're speaking about his faith journey. So rewind this and really listen to that if you're just joining us right now. But his book on Hidden is a book for men and those confused by them, right? So for all you ladies out there who really want to learn what's going on in your man and what's his psyche and why is he struggling to be that modern day man for you, the modern day woman, go pick up his book. It's an Amazon bestseller. And right now we're going to enter into my favorite part of this show. Robert, welcome to the confession round.
Okay.
This is where I'm going to ask you 10 quick fire questions. You'll have about 3 seconds to answer each. It's just for fun. Don't overthink it. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
What's your favorite thing about God?
His patience.
What's your least favorite thing?
His judgment.
Got it. What are you most afraid of?
I'm afraid of harming others or harming the environment or just using my power to harm another.
Got it. What did you spend way too much time doing in your 20s?
Worrying about what other people thought about me.
Yeah, I get that one. What secret fear do you have about people?
They won't see me. They'll just project their story on top of me.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe we all struggle with something at any given moment. We're each struggling with something. We're carrying our crosses. What are you currently struggling with, either personally or professionally?
Personally, as I've gotten older, my sex drive is decreased, which is impacting my relationship. And I don't know if it's a biological testosterone-based something or an intimacy issue because I'm so intimate. Is it just because we're so close? I'm not sure. But really, just where did my sex drive go? That is the biggest question of a 49-year-old man on the podcast today.
That's the biggest question. Got it. Pick 3 words to describe who you are now.
Wise, dedicated, and passionate.
Pick 3 words to describe who you were before you experienced God in a real way in your heart.
Arrogant. Manipulative and needy.
Got it. What's a new habit you want to form?
I just stopped eating grains. I stopped eating. I've been, my relationship with gluten has been shifting, and I just got very strict with my diet and wondering how that's going to impact the rest of my life. And so it's not just the diet; it's the self-esteem from keeping to the diet keeping to the modification of the food. And so it's really amazing to feel so powerful in saying I want to do something and actually doing it.
Very cool. What's a bad habit you want to break?
Workaholic.
Yeah.
I love to work. Yeah.
That's a common plague of men.
Yeah.
We find our identity in our work. So the more we do, the better we do, the more we are, right?
Right. Yeah. The
And
mayhem of the household with the wife and the girls, and so much more fun in my man cave. So
yeah, got it. And by the way, with your permission here, I kind of coach for a living. I'm fairly good at it. There may be a tie, just to explore there, a tie-in for you and your workaholism and the sexuality thing going on, the intimacy thing, right? You can really lose your sex drive if you're working too much.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there. And last
Thank
question,
you.
if you could come back to life after you died, look your wife, your kids, your family in the eye, give them only one piece of advice about life, about eternity, about everything, what would you say to them?
Know that you're doing it right. Know that you're perfect. And perfection includes improvement and the ability to change. But start from how perfect and beautiful you are.
I remember a phrase someone told me once. It's you're perfectly imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Perfectly imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And there's beauty in that, to your point. Any final wisdom, Robert? What's the one thing you want my listener to know about having a relationship with God versus not?
My personal viewpoint is I find God in the practice of relationship. I see the divine in my wife. I see the divine in my children. I see the divine in my friends and my family. It's through the practice of being a good man and learning to love them is how I truly feel God. So it's not like God is in some corner, that I've got to pay attention to. To me, it's in the practice of loving these special people in my life that I feel him the most.
I believe in that so much, what you're saying. God created relationship, in what it is. That need to connect with others, intimacy, that is God, right? Love. He's pure love. So I really get that. What's the best way for BC Nation to get in touch with you if they so choose?
Favorite easy way is go to robertkandell.com. You can find links to my podcast. You can find how to buy the book, how to contact me. I'm not a huge social media person anymore. I'm just kind of sick of social media. So best way to find me is to hear me on the podcast. I also write, so I have a mailing list that you can hear my current stories and new musings. So again, robertkandell.com is the best way.
And why should the guys listening right now to this show go and listen to your podcast, Tough Love? What are they going to get out of it?
I developed Tough Love. It doesn't really have a niche, which hurts the marketing aspect of it. But I built it as interesting people I've met with extraordinary practices to improve your life. So from relationship to sexuality to a feng shui expert to a botanist, like across the board, it's just interesting people. And so the goal is for you to offer ideas and concepts that you can pragmatically bring into your life and practice to improve it. And so I have really cool people on the show.
Robert, I just want to acknowledge you personally, look you in the eye on camera here, and say to you, thank you for showing up fully transparent, raw, vulnerable, unhidden. Thank you for that. Thank you for
Joseph.
sharing your journey with us. We all get to learn from you, to tie that into some of the struggles we're wrestling with, and hopefully to move through them and to not do it alone. BC Nation, go to josephwarren.net if you want to check out some of the other episodes here. You can see the podcast. You can see my other podcast, Your First 100K. If you want to make your first $100,000 this year and you just somehow can't get over that edge, go find out. Listen to some of the experts there. I share their top 3 tips and strategies for you to make your first 100K or your next 100K in the next 12 months. So go check that out at josephwarren.net. Robert Kandell, thank you, my friend. I wish you God's love, peace, and joy in your life, sir.
Thank you, Joseph.
Cheers. BC Nation, you cannot show up authentically in your life without building faith in your business.
If you want the business side of that conversation, I have another podcast called First 100K, where I interview successful entrepreneurs about how they made their first $100,000, because that's where I believe 90% of you are stuck and you can't break through. Go to first100k.com to find out how. I'm Joseph Warren. You were made for greatness, so stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you right back here next week.